Well, here we are. Conversations to Thrive. Uh, well, if you let's just recap what we did the last couple of weeks. So we talked about just what thriving is. It's kind of the sense of homeostasis. You know, that it's this sense um, of of surviving in a way that thrives and flourishes. That's kind of what we all want, I suppose, is to flourish, to thrive, to want to be something more than just dragging our feet and getting up in the morning and barely being able to breathe. We want to be able to thrive. This morning, my wife said to me, she told me that she's noticed that I'm not complaining about the little things at night, that I'm not complaining about just little niggly things that are worrying and concerning. And she attributes that to the fact that I've started walking again with a mate. So for a little while now, we are going out for a big long walk / run once a week, and we're doing our exercise. The key is that it's not just exercise, and it's not just having a conversation, it's exercising and having a conversation. Those two things, for me at least, are really important. They're a part of thriving, because I'm moving, your body is fresh, your mind is alert, you're pushing yourself in new ways, but you're also shifting the chemical mix inside your brain and inside your body so that you're more receptive to the actual conversation that you have. And I think part of thriving is it's that double kind of whammy. It's connecting with people relationally, and it's connecting with people relationally while you're being physically active. But I was physically active prior to that. I'm exercising most days of the week formally, and when I'm not exercising, I'm usually being active with my kids in one way or another. Naturally, I have planned rest days and I have reactive rest days. Some days I have to rest, and that's okay, because I know that I can get up the next day and do some exercise. So that's all part of me being healthy and well. And I have other friends that I'm in conversation with and talking with and communicating with, and that's well. But the real shift has come as I've embarked again on doing exercise with someone. It's important to do exercise by yourself, solo. I'm a solo trainer. I like to play. I like to experiment. I like to be able to push myself within my own boundaries, and I like to be able to expand my boundaries in a safe way. And for me, that's an action of thriving, because I can play, I can explore and experiment. And yet when I go for a walk with a mate, all masked up and walking, taking them off for our sprints and our runs, putting them back on afterwards, when I do that and we're walking, we're talking, and then at the end of our walk we have another talk for 5 or 10 minutes afterwards, just talking about life, something shifts, something changes inside me, because I feel heard, but also I feel connected, and I feel like I'm able to hear and connect with someone else. Because I am active in that moment, my body is more open to change. And that's one of the keys to exercise, isn't it? It's that ability to understand that exercise isn't just about losing weight or getting stronger or beating cardiovascular risk. Exercise is about our body being made to move. It will thrive when it is moving within its best parameters. So if we think about homeostasis, right, you think about the internal milieu and how the body's trying to keep itself balanced in order to thrive. Antonio Damasio talks about this in his books, about the fact that we have this kind of, we have these two boundaries within which the human person can exist. So one of those is the sense of less than thriving, pain, damage, illness, sickness, extreme fatigue. That's one extreme. The other extreme is ecstasy, joy, pleasure, extremely good feelings, thrilling, exciting things. These two extremes of living, and our body likes to move in between them. If we spend too long at this extreme, it can have negative repercussions in our body. If we spend too long in this extreme, it can have negative repercussions for our body. If we're too exhausted, too tired, too worn out all the time, then something will break down. If we're too excited, too thrilled, running, sprinting all the time, running at 110% all the time, then things are going to break down. So the idea with homeostasis, with thriving, is for your body to seamlessly move along this spectrum, up and down and up and down. And it can be doing that in multiple areas. So in one area you can be really having a great time, and in another area you can be less than well. And that's a really important point to understand, that that thriving doesn't mean there's nothing wrong. Flourishing doesn't mean that you don't have issues with your body, or that you are working at 110% in every single area. See, flourishing and thriving is a subjective experience in the moment. And you could be flourishing and thriving in one area and not so flourishing and thriving in another. And the goal is to work out where you are in each of those areas, and to really to counter them, like to bring them back into this kind of safe zone. Think about it, you've got this safe zone here, and then outside of that is a buffer zone. So if you've got a safe zone here, buffer zone here, if you're within the safe zone, everything's fine. You're moving along, you don't even notice anything's happening. When you go into the buffer zone, into this zone here, that's when an alarm will go off. Okay, you might get extra tired and fatigued, or you might start to feel agitation. You might feel really heavy in your limbs, or you might start to feel a sense of discomfort, which could lead to pain. So the buffer zones exist as a kind of an alarm system. For a time you can sit in them. The reason we have these feelings in these buffer zones is because the body's saying, okay, now it's time to rebalance it out. And the best way to balance it out is to do something that pulls you toward the other direction for a time. That's part of flourishing. It's a normal part of living. People who come to me with burnout and stress-related fatigue, whether that's burnout and fatigue from stress of work, from the stress of life, whether it's from the complexity of all the things going on in their head and in their body, or if sometimes it's just because they train too hard, they love training and they train too much. For those people, they're sitting in this space over here. They're in the extreme all the time. That takes its toll, doesn't it? Your body can only handle so much of working in the extreme before it starts to pull itself to pieces. And it's not doing that in retribution or in punishment. It's doing that because what happens is, in order to thrive in those moments, it has to change the chemical balance, the hormonal balance inside the body. Once we shift that chemical hormonal balance, then what happens is other things happen in the body, and that's very good for a time. If you're stressed, if you're working crazy hard at something, or if you're really thrilled and excited, you're at a theme park and you're doing roller coasters all the time, then what's happening is you're working in this zone here, which is the zone that mobilizes energy, okay? And you can feel really alive. You can feel like you're thriving in those moments. And you are thriving in those moments, in those areas. And if you continue in that state where you're mobilizing energy, you've got to ask the question, where's the body going to get that energy from? And so it can start to break down the healthy tissues in your body if you stay in that zone too frequently, too long. The flip side of that, then what happens is it then goes into kind of panic mode, and it starts changing some other things, and you start losing things like body mass, bone density. You start putting on body fat because your metabolism is all shifted around, and the body's trying to balance things out and make you feel a bit safer. On the flip side of that is down the other end over here. If you're always lethargic and you're always sitting down and you're always lying down and watching TV and always having the comfort foods and doing all those things always, if that's a forever thing, then your body it'll adapt to that, and it'll start to slow things down, and you'll get some of the similar effects to working in these extremes up here. You can lose bone density, you can lose muscle tone, you can lose muscle protein tissue, you lose the ability to move faster, you lose your capacity to use your oxygen well, and your efficiency goes down because you're always sitting in this extreme. So the extremes produce negative effects if you're there too long, but if you're there for a time, then they're good. In this zone here, it's recovery. It's a chance for your body to start rebuilding itself, for your body to rest and not be continually putting the joints and the tissues and the nervous system and the endocrine system under constant pressure. Yeah. So if you move toward the other extreme here, it's good. You can move fast, you can lift things, you can have fun, you can laugh, you can be thrilled and alert and alive, and that's good. That's the zone where we want to be if we're going to challenge ourselves to get stronger, to get faster, to build our endurance, to increase our flexibility, to increase our capacity to think and to problem solve. We need to be in this zone. But in order to thrive, we then need to have a planned time where we pull ourselves back into this zone here. Yeah. So when we seek to thrive, to flourish, it really is about this idea of balance. And you often hear people talk about balance, and that's really good to hear because we need to make sure we live in it. I suppose what I want to do is reflect on some of the ways that people don't exhibit balance, because unfortunately, to understand balance, we sometimes have to look at what it looks like not to have balance. So in order to thrive, we need balance. This means that for me, if you think about my story from the start of the session, where about walking with my mate, so I had exercise by itself, and I had friends that I would talk to and communicate with, but I was missing the convergence of the two. And that's one of the reasons I used to do I'd go to my karate training and my sword training, was because I get that social connection along with the physicality. So I'm pretty good. I'm very disciplined. I never used to be, but I've learned to be very disciplined with my physicality and with my contemplative work, and I can maintain that very well over the course of the month. But it's not enough for me to thrive. I need to create the balance of not just going solo, but the balance of doing physicality with someone. The balance of doing play, of laughing, talking, running with another adult who's of a similar ilk to me, but who still sees things from a different perspective. Because we thrive when we're in relationship moving, and we thrive when we are also being solo moving. It's not about, I'm an extrovert, I have to exercise with people. And it's not about, I'm an introvert, I have to exercise by myself. It's about, I'm a person. And a person is a social being. It's just that we have to work out where we get our energies from. That's where the extrovert, introvert stuff comes from in order to thrive. However, that doesn't mean that you don't require human connection. We all require human connection. I'm seeing that the most in this COVID stuff. I'm seeing it in myself, and I'm seeing it in a bunch of people that I work with, clients and friends, who are feeling less than thriving. That's why I started these conversations. People are doing the best they can to survive, but they're dwindling, they're withering because they're not connecting with human beings. And we get this video fatigue. Yeah, sure, we can do video calls, but it's not the same. We need a live connection with someone in order to really thrive. So when we can't get that, how do we thrive? That's a really good question. Sometimes we have to look at what do we value about connecting with someone, like what does it mean? What does it mean to connect with a person? What does it mean to have a relationship with someone? And why does that help us? And as we tap into the foundation of why a relationship helps us, perhaps we can find those same needs met in other ways. I don't have any answers because for everyone it will be different. And for me, I'm lucky because here in Melbourne we're allowed to do exercise with one other person. So I can go for a walk and keep my distance and do that thing. But one of the things I think that helps is if we exercise and relate to people, it can shift our mood in new ways, like with my friend walking. So another friend offered for me to do some karate sessions together He'll set up his camera in his lounge room and I'll set up mine in my lounge room, and we'll both train together. We do different styles, but we can both train together. So I can set up my camera at the end of this room and I can be doing my punches and my kicks, and we can both compare notes on our kata, and we can do all the things that we want to do in our lounge room. So we're doing physicality while at the same time talking and laughing. And that will shift the relational strength. That will shift the experience of relating to someone over video. Why? Because we are changing the chemical milieu inside our body. We're going from this extreme of not doing any physicality. Remember I talked at the start about how we could be thriving in one area but not thriving in another, or thriving in several but missing out on another one. So what we can do is we can be thriving in our physicality and in our relationality, and more than that, we can bring them together so that that deep mix, that mix of good, that mix of relationality, that mix of being belonging, that mix of connecting, of feeling heard, but also of hearing someone else, of caring for someone else, they are part of thriving in relationship. And when we combine them with that mix of physicality, so we're getting the nervous system stimulated because we're moving across the body in different ranges, because we're increasing our heart rate. There's all sorts of chemicals being released inside the body that make us feel great. Our pain levels are being suppressed for a period of time. Our immune response is being boosted, and and over time, and we've got all the chemicals to do with learning and memory and all that stuff. They can be induced after the fact of exercise, but also we have increased meaning, so our capacity to remember and connect and make new meaning in areas of life that we haven't done it before. All of that stuff is triggered when we exercise. And so if we're doing that, exercising with someone, even though they're not connected, what we can do is, if we're doing it over video, exercising together from a distance, we can create a whole new way of thriving. Now, it's not perfect. It's not as good as sitting down with a mate, having a cuppa, or going for a walk down the park, or training in your sport of choice with all of your mates, being able to do the full contact stuff, or kick the footy, or whatever it is that you love to do. It's not the same as that, right? It's different. For me, it's not the same as going to the gym and lifting heavy weights. But that's okay, because what it is bringing the two worlds together. So where we get half of one and half of the other, we might get a whole. Actually, we probably get 1 1/4, 1 1/2 when we combine them together. And you may find that you flourish in new ways. So to thrive, if you can, try and exercise with someone, but keep your distance, wear a mask. And if you can't, then seek someone that you can thrive with in a video context. And make it playful and make it fun. And it doesn't matter how good the quality of the video is or the quality of the sound. Well, hopefully you can hear each other and understand each other. But you do that for half an hour, 40 minutes. You sit down in your lounge room with your video on and you just do something crazy and stupid with a friend. Maybe you get your computer open and you both watch the same YouTube exercise video. So you're both doing a Pilates workout, or you're both doing a body weight workout at the same time, watching it on separate YouTube videos, right? But you've got your video open in your room. Your camera's up with your video call on, you're FaceTiming or you're Zooming or whatever it is, and you're doing it together. And while you do it, you talk and you laugh and you have a good time. And your cat comes and jumps on your face, and your mate's dog keeps licking them, and their tongue keeps going up their nostrils, and they start giggling, and then you start giggling, and before you know it, you're thriving. You're alive again. How exciting! Because now you are physically moving and you're interacting with someone even though they're not present. You're sharing an experience together. I can't emphasize enough how important it is to engage other people with your movement. You don't have to do it every day, just once a week. And yet you may discover that it's a wonderful experience for you. You might be pleasantly surprised at the changes that can happen, or maybe there'll be no changes that happen. Maybe there's some other changes that I haven't mentioned that you'll experience, and they are all good, or whatever they are. We can't know what they are though until you give it a go. So, well, that's all I've got to say about thriving today. Connecting with exercise so that we can get our homeostatic balance right. Don't spend too much time here, don't spend too much time there. When you're here, have a planned session where you can pull yourself back to here. When you're here, have a planned session so you can pull yourself back to here. And it's got to be deliberate, it's got to be planned. If it's not deliberate and planned, you tend to lose it. That doesn't mean you have to. I used to hate, I still do actually, the word discipline, because it just such terrible associations for me, especially growing up, because I never understood what was going on inside my brain. And so I was always recriminating myself, always thinking that I was I don't know about you, incriminating myself, saying I am a bad person, condemning me because I wouldn't focus, I wouldn't finish anything, I wouldn't complete it. And that's the story I keep getting told by pretty much everyone in the world, whether they're teachers, friends, some family, colleagues. I mean, you read articles online about it, you read motivational speechy things. Everyone is all like, you got to be disciplined, you got to do this, you got to be disciplined, you got to do that, you got to... Sermons in church, oh my gosh, talk about piling it on. Fruit Loops, it's ridiculous. You got to be disciplined, it's a good godly life, holy, godly, discipline, discipline, discipline. You know what? Discipline is an excellent skill to develop. But that's the thing, it's a skill that you develop. And it's tied in closely to the values that you bring to life. So if you're told to be disciplined in an area without addressing other values, without meeting other needs, biological values, emotional, relational values, and other values, then it doesn't matter how much you're not meeting them, all the discipline in the world, when you get tired and fatigued, when your brain gets fried, discipline goes out the window. And if you've been told, and if you've told yourself the story that being disciplined equals being a good person, then when you are not disciplined, the story you'll tell yourself is, I am a bad person. But that is blatantly false. And it doesn't matter where you come from, what your background is, you're doing things in a disciplined manner doesn't add or subtract value from you as a person. It just changes. Whether you're disciplined or not just changes how your body adapts and the successes and achievements that you make. So the question is, why are you not disciplined, right? Why aren't you doing that thing regularly? What need of yours, what value is being met by doing the other thing? And can that other value be met in a different way or through a different belief system when you do that thing over there? Or can you ascertain that that value is so important that doing this will bolster you so that you can do that value? If the thing you're not disciplined in, if that could be seen as a thing that leads you toward achieving the higher order value in your life, that can be magic in transforming how you do these things. It's not about discipline being a good and a bad person. It's about just seeking out the value in things and deciding whether that value is enough for me to change my behavior today. And if it is, then do it. Plan it. Put it into your life so that instead of swinging from extreme to extreme, you start knowing and planning, I've got an extreme, so I've got to have this back here again. Oh, I've got an extreme, I've got to have this back here again, so that you're constantly pulling yourself toward connection with others, toward thriving, toward moving, toward nourishing your soul, toward being still in your body and your mind. That's all I've got to say today. Thanks for joining me in the Conversations to Thrive. I'm really enjoying the interactions I'm getting from this. I'm getting a few people with messages and emails and questions outside of the space, and I'm really enjoying that stuff. So please join in the conversation. If you like the videos, click that like button down below. Subscribe to my channel. There's plenty more content coming. So please hop on that bandwagon and share it around with people, because we just want people to thrive and connect, to thrive and to flourish. This is Stu Mack, signing off.